Welcome to Gameday716. We are live tonight, Tuesday, September 21st. Todd, Noah, Paul here. Game Day CJ is not. He's celebrating the birthday of his daughter, right?
Yes.
8-year-old. I don't know. Daughter, I think. We're still getting to know each other. So, how is everybody tonight?
Good.
I'm doing great. Just a heads up for everybody. The Gameday716 Twitter account isn't live streaming right now. You're going to have to retweet it. We got to figure out why one of them didn't connect properly, but everything else is live. The Gameday716 Twitter account does not live streaming right now, but everything else is.
All right. Mine is a Buffalo guy. At a Buffalo guy, if you want to stream on Twitter, or should be. Look up
What
camera. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
I'm just trying.
We've got a new look.
Get it out.
A whole new look.
Whole
It's
new
a new
look,
era.
whole new style. It is a new day, a new dawn, a brand new era for Game Day 716. We have upgraded and improved. So,
And we'll get better as we go.
always getting better every week. So, yep. CJ's not here again. Not again. CJ's not here to repeat myself. So it's just
Yep.
Me,
It's
Noah,
just us.
just us.
So,
just
yep,
the three of
it's
us.
us.
So we're gonna start with rapid fire questions at the guys. I'm gonna shoot these out, and here we go. 762 refunds were made by the Buffalo Bills to their fans. Paul, was this higher or lower than you expected?
It was right about what I expected, if I'm being honest. I didn't think there would be a ton. I guess I'm a little shocked that it was almost 1,000, but when you consider that out of all the people that could have refunded their tickets, that less than 1,000 did, I think that's saying something, because I was told, at least by Twitter and the rest of social media, that the stadium was going to be empty. So glad to see that everybody's going to be with us and ready to rock Highmark Stadium all season long.
Absolutely. So there's 762 at least seats available at Ralph Wilson Stadium right now for every game. Zdeno Chara not retires. He re-signs with the New York Islanders. It is the longest amount of time between a player re-signing or playing with his team and re-signing with his team. It's 17 years and 6 months or something like that. Who's gonna last longer, Zdeno Chara or Tom Brady? Noah?
I think Brady. I mean, he's 44 years old and already looks like he's on pace to win MVP. So
they're both, yes, and they're both 44. So, all right. Noah says Brady. Ben Simmons is not reporting to 76ers camp. Noah, how big of a deal is that?
I think it's a big deal for the Sixers because it's very obvious that, he wants out of there. So the fact that he said to them he's never going to play another game for them means now they've lost a superstar like him. So,
Paul, how much does this parallel the Jack Eichel situation?
I'm going to say loosely, only because there's been some recent developments, and I'm going to say that I would imagine that Jack Eichel has a disdain for Sabres management more so than Ben Simmons does.
I'm not sure I agree, but that's okay.
Just because of the fact that there's a very specific thing that Jack Eichel wants to do. And I don't think in any other league, if I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong, but I believe that the NHL is currently the only sports organization that gives the medical rights of the player to the team to this extent.
I'm not sure if that's true, but we'll take it and move forward. So, Noah, NFL All 22 access is still unavailable
Yeah.
to regular individuals. How are we feeling about that?
Not the best. I mean, it is free for me, but I don't know what I'm not paying for the service for. And that's kind of the way I feel.
Fair enough.
I agree with that.
Okay. Instigators have replaced Craig Gervais and Andrew Peters with Marty Baron and Brian Duff. Paul, good move, bad move, smart move, hate it, love it?
I'm on the fence with this one because I do listen to the Instigators on my lunch break, right? They kind of coincide with my lunch break pretty often, especially when they were in that noon time slot there for a minute. I don't know all of the details about what went down with Andrew Peters and Craig Gervais. All I know is that the show is still keeping a familiar face and voice in Marty Baron, but I am a little taken back because I have heard rumblings all day that that WGR did these guys dirty, and if that's the case, then I'm on their side and not WGR. So sorry, WGR.
All right, I'm for it. Don't care. I think they made the right move. I think Peters and Gervais were awful, and I'm very happy that they're getting some professionals in Baron and Duff. Baron's worked for the Rangers. Duff has worked for the Sabres for a long time. And Marty's also obviously worked for the Sabres. So Marty and Brian both have extremely good chemistry. And I think that that this will be a good move in the end and get them more listeners. So Brett Murray had a fantastic Sabres prospects camp.
He did.
Brett Murray is 23 years old. Is Brett Murray considered a prospect?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
But I no disagreement there. No disagreement there.
Okay. That's fine. Current NFL MVP, Paul.
Through 2 weeks? Through 2 weeks, who would be my NFL MVP? Minus getting hurt, I because of what happened during week 1, I might have to go with TJ Watt despite the injury, because I think without TJ Watt, there is a chance that week 1 goes a little bit different. But there's no telling. Hey, Brenda, we see you.
Fair enough. The Fugees reuniting for a 12 tour concert. Lauryn Hill, Wyclef Jean, and the other guy, Praz Michelle, or Praz, really. Anyway, Noah, is this? Oh, the reason they're doing it, 25th anniversary of The Score. Paul, does this make you feel old?
I felt old before today, but now I'm feeling ancient. So thank you for that. 25 years, really?
Yes.
Mike's out there too. What's up, Mike? We see you.
Noah, you weren't alive when The Score was released.
I was not.
How about that?
Now I feel even older.
Are you still excited about the tour and that they're going to at least stream one of the shows live for Citizens United?
Really?
Yes.
I'll actually watch that because I think it would be cool to see them live.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like one of those groups.
Well, we know that Lauryn Hill and Wyclef can really, really perform.
Right.
And
I've never seen Wyclef live, but you have.
Yes, I have.
So.
And he was great. So let's move on. That was rapid fire. First time, long time. But
it was rapid.
It was rapid, and we fired. So that
sounds weird.
We fired. Oh, I had one more. Job interviews. Smart to sign or to send a follow-up letter, or do you want to get the job without one? Paul.
Ooh, you mean like send a follow-up letter?
Yeah.
Like after your interview, right?
I know.
I always have. I've at least always sent an email after the fact, thanking them for their time. I think it's really not the place, like on the interview itself, to thank them. It kind of gives you a way to reach out and to put your name back out there. I usually don't do it like the moment I get home. I'll wait till the next day, follow up with an email. That way, if by chance I slipped from like one of the top 2 candidates down to like 3rd or 4th, the hope is that email gets my name back out there. And they're like, oh yeah, you know what? We really like that guy. He's the only one that followed up after the fact. It can separate you. I'm for it.
Noah.
I never do. So I don't think I'm the person to ask this question to.
That's okay. That's what it's for. Now we'll move on. So
Cool.
35-0. Are we feeling as good as the score looked?
Yes.
I
don't
am.
care what anybody has to say.
That's all that
Yep.
matters.
Same.
So
Same.
we're feeling as good. Are we feeling great about the defense? Good about the defense? Or do we say they were playing Tua and Jacoby Brissett along with Myles Gaskin and the rest of Matt Gesicki and Devontae Parker and
that's about it.
That's about it.
Those are the 3 players.
Jalen Waddle.
Oh yeah, he dropped
was
like
not
about 3
good.
passes.
Yeah. So do we feel great about the defense? Good about the defense? How are we feeling? Leslie Frazier was named coach of the week
Mhm.
by the Coaches Association of America, which includes high school, college, and the NFL.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa, I didn't realize that it was like that.
Yeah.
All right. That's okay.
So we're feeling good. We're feeling good about
I'm
the
feeling
defense.
good. I'll
And
tell
you
you
know
What
this.
was your favorite part?
That Trey
Of the
White showed up.
defense?
Yep. Noah says Trey White showed up. Paul?
Trey White did show up. I am going to say that we didn't really see a ton from Rousseau on the stat sheet in week 1, but seeing him build off of a solid performance, that has me very encouraged. I saw some clips from leaks of all 22 footage that we don't have full access to at this point. Hopefully by next week, we'll be able to incorporate that into the show, but
Figure out the
he is
VPN.
going to
I have the VPN, but I got to figure out the VPN.
and we'll figure it out.
We're getting there. Yeah.
I will say that Rousseau has a little bit more power than I assumed too. There was one play that resulted in is one of his 2 sacks where you know what? He came up short of getting the sack on the play I'm describing, but he goes right through the right tackle. I mean, bull rushes him, and the right tackle's knees pretty much buckle, and he dives over the right tackle as the right tackle is collapsing to the ground to try to dive and get at Jacoby Brissett. And he comes within inches before he gets out of harm's way. But I think that just goes to show that the pass rush is very much there. And not only that, PFF has Matt Milano as the #1 ranked linebacker in all of the NFL right now. It's only through 2 weeks. I think that's saying something. If not for the defense showing out as much as it had, I would probably be a little bit more worried about the offense. But this is the kind of defense that could have helped us
very
Yes.
soon.
Yeah,
So,
and we will. This
so
defense with
with
last
that
year's
thought-
offense would have won the Super Bowl. Just saying.
Okay. So with that thought, I would say AJ Epinesa was probably my favorite part of the defense, at least his couple of plays where he destroyed Tua, including the play that broke Tua's ribs or at least made him go ouch, because he's fine according to the x-rays.
Like nothing's hurt at all.
Even though he had to be carted off,
he was
literally
carted
holding
off.
his arm
Upper
in
body
place.
injury.
Like
Fantastic.
Looked like
Noah,
he was
you had
dead.
more thoughts. Was it the defense in whole?
Well, it was also to bring up this about Epinesa. In 2020, AJ Epinesa played 291 snaps and he only had 7 pressures. This season, he's played 53 and he already has 15. And that's just pressures. That's not like
he's showing up.
So, but I think that has to do with him adding on all that weight and that extra muscle. Because when not on the Tua play, because I saw that Tua play, he was completely uncovered. I think that was Jedrick Willis on the edge for Miami. He completely missed it. But there was another play where he made a play in the backfield. I think he stopped Gaskin and he literally just shoved the guy to the ground and was like, get out of my way, and then made the play. And the fact that you have that, and then you have Groot, and then you have Hughes, and you have
Hughes barely
Addison.
played.
Well, and then but Addison was there. Star made a difference. Literally saw him taking on multiple guys. Like, we missed that.
So we have a Facebook user who says Leslie Frazier is a genius. Do we think that this applies to Leslie Frazier, or the fact that Sean McDermott was the defensive coach, or do we say he's a head coach at this point and worries about the offense and the defense?
I think Frazier's a head coach, has a head coach mindset, but it only focuses on the defense. I mean,
well, that's what the defensive coordinator. I was asking about McDermott.
Oh, no, I mean, McDermott's the head coach, so I mean, he's always going to focus on both. I mean, I think he's transitioned from being the coach who strictly focuses on the defense and being that guy in the first couple of years to now being like, all right, I have my guys, I have everybody, I got to focus on everybody. Yeah, I mean, the game plan against Miami was flawless. They didn't let up any points. So
there was a Pro Football Focus, right, that told us that the Bills pressured 44.8% of the time, something like that, and 53% of their pressures got through.
Their pass rush win rate so far this season, they are 4th in the NFL at 58%. Their team run stop win rate, they are 10th in the NFL. They are tied with the Broncos at 33%. So that's definite improvement.
Good. That's good. Paul, what are you thinking?
I am thinking that from a defensive standpoint, one of the things that I noticed is just as we predicted last week, and we also talked about quite a bit before the game started on Sunday, lots of pressure coming from our DBs. Back-to-back DB blitzes right out of the gate on the first drive of the game. I think it set the tone. The first one you had it was Taron Johnson, I believe, on the first one.
Yep.
Yeah, he came pretty much unblocked off of the left side.
Yep.
Yeah, just beat his man, instant sack. And then the second one, we had Micah Hyde coming around. Same thing, sent a DB again, untouched. And I think that they really set the tone that, we're going to send it from everywhere. Another thing that I was really surprised to see is how frequently they were blitzing Matt Milano and how effective he was doing so. There was one play that I sent you guys earlier when we were just discussing things a little bit where Rousseau is dropped into coverage and he is helping with the tight end. He passes the tight end off to another zone, and then Milano is blitzing the A gap and shoots untouched right in Jacoby Brissett's face. Jacoby Brissett steps up at the pocket a little bit, avoids Milano, scoots over to the left a little bit. And by the time he does, Rousseau has already identified that he has slid out of the pocket a bit. He drops his zone, rushes, and it was one of Rousseau's 2 sacks of the day. A lot of things going on that play. Next week, we'd be able to actually show it as we talk about it. But the long and short of it is you have a blitz from a linebacker in Milano that is being very effective, coming right through the A gap. You have a D end dropping into coverage, which has been complained about in past years of Bills history, but he did it well. He stuck to his man, passed him off to another zone, and then you see him kind of just hovering around the line of scrimmage, waiting for something to happen. And then his second that Jacoby Brissett steps out of the way of harm's way, he's right there to get the sack. So I think all in all, the defense has proven to be a force. They're the second ranked as far as DVOA is concerned. And I think that we're going to continue to see that growth. Generally speaking, last year notwithstanding, because last year was an anomaly, the defenses tend to end up a little bit ahead of the game in week 1, 2, and 3 than the offense does. It's just generally how it goes. And I think we're seeing that this year.
Like spring baseball, right?
Yeah,
like spring baseball, where you go and you see your pitching be better than hitting, that kind of thing. Just because it's partly spring and partly batters haven't had the chance to see the pitchers yet, and they need to have their first and second go round.
I'll let you shout that out. That's on the screen because we're about to get into that in a couple of minutes here.
Mm-hmm.
Kravis Patty asks us what we think about crowd pressure with Allen. When we get to the offense, we will answer that question, Mike. Stick around.
What do you think of without getting into what we're going to get into specific to the offense, what were your overall impressions? If the defense plays like that and we get week 2 Josh Allen and company for the rest of the season, is that sustainable? Like if the defense is going to play that lights out in the offense. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that in the wrap up.
I think that's
let's talk about what we have going on with the offense, and then we can. Yeah. All right. So we want to move on.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of ground to cover on the offense.
Here we go.
Our focus is. We have found a couple trends here when it comes to the offense that Paul is going to dive into and explain in only a way that Paul can. So, yeah. So the offense was, I think to use your words, sustainable, or isn't the right word to use. It was average, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, Josh was 17 of 33 for 179, 2 TDs and a pick. So, like, not
old Josh,
the best, but
old Josh.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But let's dig in. So, Paul, talk to us about an offensive offense.
What
say that
exactly is going to make this offense offensive? So yeah, quite the captivating little remark there. I will say this about the offense. There is a trend going on right now that I think we could look at a couple different ways. So I guess the best way to do it is to kind of show everybody what it is that we've kind of unraveled here and dug through the data to find. And then we'll talk about why we think this could be a thing. The overarching sentiment that I want to point out to everybody before we even get started is that in 2020, the 2020 Bills offense, the ball was spread around rather well. There wasn't really any parts of the field that Allen and company didn't go to. A bunch of different people caught the ball. We almost broke records for how many different players caught a touchdown pass. So spreading the ball around did not seem to be a problem in 2020. One of the things that have seemingly come to the forefront in the early stages of 2021 is that the offense seems to only be utilizing one half of the field. And in order for me to kind of dive into why that might be, let's first take a peek at the chart from just this past let's see, let me pull this up.
Past week against Miami.
Just this past week. So this past week, let me pull this up properly. There we go. Now I got it. All right. So this is from just this past game against Miami. And if you look at the way that all of the passes went, almost everything went to the left side in week 2 against the Miami Dolphins. Now, some could say that maybe that had something to do with the line. Maybe that just had to do with the fact that Josh Allen likes to roll out to the right and fire missiles down on the sideline so Gabe Davis can tiptoe inbounds. I don't believe that that's what it is. And we'll get into some theories why, but I want to further show how much the offense is leaning to the left. Quite literally. So again, as you can see, these are Josh Allen's passes from week 2. Both touchdown passes went to the left. I'd say about 90% of the overall throws went to the left. The only passes that went to the right that were completed were right at the line of scrimmage. So just bookmark that in your heads for a second here.
And weren't they mostly all to Knox?
It was Knox and Beasley, I believe.
Yeah,
I think they tried to do one of those screens again to Beasley, and that got blown up.
Oh, that's
and that was to the right side.
Yeah, I remember because we were all like, "Why are you running screens?"
It was a 7-yard loss, and then the other one was to Knox on the right side because Josh seems to like going to Knox a whole lot more. So, yes. Paul, what else you got?
So here we're going to take a quick peek at the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs, and as you can immediately tell, the ball distribution was much, much different. In fact, it almost seemed to favor the right side instead of the left. But the thing is, this isn't just the passing offense that this trend seems to be happening with. As you could see, last year, even in the AFC Championship game, Josh Allen was spreading the ball out all over the field. What started to happen, though, going into this season is everything seems to be running to the left. I'm going to show you next what Devin Singletary's runs looked like from this past week, and you're going to see more of that same trend. So these are Devin Singletary's week 1 and week 2 run fits. So if you look, he's
seen that. Yeah,
primarily running to the left-hand side of the formation as well. Now, again, we could argue that maybe the left side of the formation, the offensive line, is the strong suit right now. Well, if you go back to week 1, that wasn't exactly the case. Deion Dawkins and John Feliciano both struggled in both pass protection and run blocking. So it would,
but it looked like they ran between Feliciano and Mitch Morrison.
Yes,
for most of the game.
For most of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it looks like after some of the issues that they saw in week 1, they started to pop it outside a little bit more. But again, still mostly favoring running towards the left hash. And that's the same thing that we're seeing in the passing game. Now, in order to
for those
really
individuals trying to watch, that's the week 2 is on the left side.
And yes, and week 1 was on the right. Both are very similar. Now, what I want to show you guys, though, is Josh Allen's passer rating, depending on the section of the field that he is throwing the ball to. Because I think that that's one of the more telling things that we could see when we take everything that we've just discussed and then we put it into context. In 2020, Josh Allen was money on the right side of the field. So it really begs the question, what are the possible reasons that your quarterback is having a huge amount of success throwing to the right side of the
money,
field?
That's the actual green that you're talking about, right?
Oh, yeah. Green equals money. For sure.
Green equals money, and the higher numbers are even better, right?
Yeah, so those numbers are his passer rating.
That's his passer rating, that number, and then it also shows average. Okay,
yes.
So
yellow, he had some troubles.
High over the league average. I mean, he was still above the league average. It looks like in everything except deep balls and medium left.
Yeah, medium left, deep balls, deep right. He seemed fine at. And if we remember back to the Broncos game, there was the deep shot to Diggs on the sideline that he had missed earlier in the game. They went back to it and they hit it the second time. I'm trying to think back to the 2020 season. The John Brown long touchdown, that was on the right-hand side of the field, I want to say.
Yeah, I think you're right.
A lot of it happened on the right-hand side of the field. And don't get me wrong, there was the pass to Diggs against the Patriots where he rolls back out to his left, flips his hips, fires the ball. We all remember that throw. It was a thing of beauty. That was the left side of the field, but that was probably in the 10 to 20 range. So that would probably fall somewhere in between mid-left and mid-mid. So again, we just saw him be very successful throwing to the right side of the field compared to the left. Not drastically different on the left-hand side, but there was absolutely more success on the right. And that's because Josh Allen would roll out to his right. He's a right-handed quarterback. He wouldn't have to flip his hips if he was rolling out to the left and firing. So him rolling out, going to the right and firing the ball makes sense. Now, teams probably have taken that away. But do we really think the solution to that is to drive the offense completely through the left-hand side of the field? And I think that's where we're at right now, is that there is clearly they're favoring the left side. And I think we should discuss maybe what some of those reasons could be, because I think that there's a lot of them. I think that there's a lot of possibilities here. I don't see a ton of people talking about this just yet. And I think that it's something to monitor moving forward, because I definitely have some good ideas as to why this could be. But we're going to keep an eye on this as we move forward the next few weeks. It's going to be interesting to see if this upcoming game against Washington, we see a lot of the same. Keep your eyes out. Are the runs going to the left? Our pass plays, our routes being run from right to left. Diggs is also one that I had pulled up. Stephon Diggs, when it comes to the routes he's running, he's almost exclusively lining up on the left-hand side of the field right now. And that wasn't necessarily the case in 2020. His drive chart, his chart shows that he was lining up on the right and running, routes from right to left. He was lining up on the left and running routes that were from left to right. So he was moving all over the place. And it seems like through the first 2 weeks, he's predominantly been lining up on the left, and his routes have stayed to the left. And there's very few examples of when that hasn't been true the first 2 weeks. So it's definitely something that we're going to want to keep an eye on moving forward. But I think with that, we should jump right back into why we think this is and what we think it means moving forward. No, what are your initial thoughts after we flash all that up on the screen and show people that that's verifiably what's going on? The offense is running almost exclusively to the left side of the field.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a couple of things going on. I mean, everybody seems to be singing Darrell Williams' praises from that game yesterday, or not yesterday, 2 days ago. But I didn't think that he had that great of a game. You know, he had 2 penalties on him. He let up a couple guys get around the edge. A couple,
who isn't a superstar by any means.
Right. And on top of that, Ford struggled as well. Ford had penalties on himself. There were a couple times where I think it was Zach Seiler, the defensive tackle, was in there. He didn't make a play, but he was applying pressure. So I don't want to. You never want to say with a McDermott team that he doesn't trust his guys, because I feel like when you're talking about McDermott and the way the Bills are as a whole, you know, I think trust is a huge thing for them. You know, they talk about being a family and being a relationship and that kind of stuff. So, but there is something here where it seems like they're struggling, because I saw a play where Spencer Brown was in on the right side, and he literally picked his guy up and drove him about 15 yards down the field all the way to the left. Like, just kept going. It was like that scene in The Blind Side where like he literally put the guy, just kept going, and then threw him over the fence. Yeah. And so it was kind of like that. And if Darrell Williams keeps going the way he's going and Spencer Brown is able to come into these certain situations and show, there isn't a reason why he can't at least get a starting opportunity. If he sucks, he sucks. And then you take a step back and you put back in Williams. But there seems to be a lack of trust there, because even the QB runs aren't to the right. The design ones.
Like the rollouts and stuff?
Not the rollouts, the actual design runs. They're also mostly to the left. Now, Josh will run when he wants to run, so that's going to be anywhere. But actually design runs, those are also mostly going to the left.
Or up the middle, from what I remember.
Right, but that's still over Morse. That's not over Ford and Williams.
Yep.
The thing that Williams and Ford do well is they do hold up. They're pass protectors in my eyes more than they are run blockers.
I don't know. In week 1, Cody Ford looked like a bit of a grader, you know, and really pushing guys back. But in week 2, I think he definitely had more of a pass protector mindset. And that may have been because Josh took some hits in week 1, and that they had the designed run plays. Whereas you didn't see designed run plays for Josh in week 2. You saw him back in the pocket, and I don't remember a lot of rollouts either way, but I think you're right. When they did roll out in week 2, it was to the left. So go ahead, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't. You're fine.
Felt like it.
My next theory is that we're dealing with Sugar Rush Josh. Sugar Rush Josh is a Josh we saw in the Houston Texans game who flipped the ball up and made the fumble trying to make something happen. Sugar Rush Josh is a Josh we see running down the field, throwing the ball into the middle of 3 defenders because he thinks he can fit the ball in there and it gets intercepted. It's
Let
narrator.
me ask you a question.
He can.
Let me ask you a question. Is Sugar Rush Josh the Josh who can't handle crowd pressure?
Yes. Because that Texans game, that place was rocking, and look at how that offense struggled.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
but what about Monday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys, or not Monday Night Football, Thanksgiving against the Cowboys? How much bigger of a stage has he been on?
Okay,
AFC Championship game.
Less fans.
See, here's the thing.
Bigger stage.
Yeah. Here's the thing. That was his coming out party, right? Kind of like that was kind of when the national media started to respect him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a difference for Allen when it comes to having a regular season game than having a playoff game. Because think about the Pittsburgh games for the past 2 years, when those have been the game clinching ones to get us to the playoffs. He's done that. He's done what he's needed to do in those games, and he, you know, we never looked like we weren't up to the pressure. But when we're talking about the Houston game, struggled.
I love when you get your Brooklyn accent when you're starting to get passionate.
When we're looking at the Indy game was tough. That was a back and forth game. But yes, we won, but we did eke that out. Look at the Ravens game. Teron Johnson doesn't make that interception. We might be talking about something completely different here.
Well, the Ravens either score with a field goal or a touchdown, and then you have either a tie game or a game where they're losing, right?
Yeah.
So definitely, I think you see a trend with Josh and crowds, and a trend with I'm not sure what trend exactly, but when it comes to the crowds, I think it may have something to do with it, because especially at home against Pittsburgh, when they finally had the crowd back, and he definitely seemed like Sugar Rush Josh, because when the crowd would get loud, he seemed like he wanted to do more. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole separate issue about the crowd getting loud on offense. People, stop it. But let's not make Josh hyper when we don't need him to be. So I think that might be when Josh loses it a little. He's just not used to the big stage coming from Wyoming, and he may not be used to that yet. So
that's fair. I mean, I think there's definitely, you can see that there's a learning curve with him, and still in certain aspects. I mean, there's obviously always going to be a learning curve with QB, because Brady says he's always still learning, right, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he says. So I think there's that, but with that, I just think with that added incentive, I mean, especially when we're at home, I mean, that first game, he never looked comfortable. He never looked like he was able to get his feet set. He never looked like he trusted the pocket.
I think his feet were worse in the Miami game.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Miami game, he seemed to be throwing off his back foot and that kind of stuff. But, I don't think that there's an injury there, because I really do think that even if it was
Paul hit on the injury, because he thinks that there might be.
Yeah.
I have a couple theories, but I want to debunk some of your guys's and some of the ones that I've seen online before I even get into hypotheticals about what I think might be going on.
Just
injury is one of the two. Let's
go with that the crowd does have an effect on Josh.
Yeah,
the crowd could. I mean, I can come up with reasons why I don't think that it does. One would be knowing what kind of music this man listens to before he gets on the field. I think he's very much in tune with the fact that early in his career with the Bills, Sugar Rush Josh was a detriment to the team rather than being a spark when they need it. And I think that he's tried to rein that in as much as possible, but still keep it and almost like work within this controlled chaos. The second part of that is the final preseason game. He looked sharp. Like, I thought that this offense was going to be humming immediately just based off of some of the throws we saw in that preseason game. And that crowd was loud. Like, that crowd it was the first time that we had been in that stadium in a long time. And I know it was just preseason, but I would imagine that was probably the loudest preseason game in the history of the Bills franchise. I don't know that you can, I would imagine that that's gotta be a thing, right? I don't know how we can quantify that. I don't know that you get to this level and crowd noise is your Achilles heel. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't have an effect, but why would you only throw to one half of the field because the crowd's loud?
Oh, I think there's two different things we're talking about, right? So I think throwing to the left versus Sugar Rush Josh are really two different things. And again, I think you can go into your conspiracy theories or ideas on why throwing to the left is
a thing,
and is happening. But it'll be interesting, I think, in the next couple of weeks to see how the offensive offense trends for the next couple of weeks, and whether we see something, and this may be where you're headed, right? So
Yep.
let's talk about your injury
Yes.
theory first.
Let's start with the injury theory because that's the least likely of my two theories. I'm not gonna sit here and claim to be an expert on all the injury related rules within the NFL. That's not really my forte. I don't know that like the back of my hand, but I also know that we found out after the playoffs that both Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley both played hurt. It didn't show up on any injury reports, not that I saw, not that I remember seeing, but we got wind of it after the fact. They made a big deal about Beasley playing on a broken leg, and Stephon Diggs was playing through an oblique injury. Again, I don't recall either one of those injuries being on the injury report. If you go back to last year, after Josh had the shoulder thing against the Raiders, and he landed on the shoulder, went out for a few plays, came back after halftime, I believe it was, and then the rest is history. Ended up throwing a bomb to Stephon Diggs, who ended up mossing the DB for the Raiders. So it was affecting him, and you could tell in his play, but I don't recall seeing Josh on the injury report every single day either, while he was kind of dealing with those lingering effects. So there's got to be, I would imagine there's some rules in place that you've got to report certain things, but I also think that there's loopholes to everything, not just in the NFL, but all over the place. And I think that there's a possibility that Josh is dealing with something else shoulder related, and it's making it to where all the reads on the left side of the field are easy because he just sets his feet, his shoulders are already square, and he lets it rip. Now, if he's got to throw to the other side of the field, then all of a sudden he's got to turn his body a little bit, right? Like he's flipping his shoulders over, he's probably flipping his hips, and then he's leading and throwing through. If he can't make this motion, it could explain why he's not throwing to the right side of the field and why Dable's scheming everything up going to the left. And when I say scheming up everything going to the left, we already showed you the runs going to the left. We showed you that Josh's passes are going to the left. The route concepts also seem to be favoring the left-hand side. There was a play that was intended for Isaiah McKenzie in the Dolphins game. The quarter that it took place in escapes me, but it was a deep shot. You had Diggs coming across the field on a crosser from right to left, again, to the left. You had Isaiah McKenzie run across the formation and then run almost like a wheel route towards the left pylon. And Josh lays it out there, but DB does a really nice job of identifying that the ball has been thrown, and he jumps it and almost comes away with the interception. Now, for a split second, if you go back and look at the clip, and man, I wish all 22 wasn't acting ridiculous because it'd be much easier to show everybody.
Not worry about
so
it.
Diggs comes across the right side of the field, and it is in Josh's field of view to where you see Josh for a millisecond before he lets the ball rip to McKenzie by the left pylon. He turns his head real quick, and it's super subtle, but he turns a little bit, and it almost is like, he saw Diggs just based on where his eyes were in that moment. And Diggs was coming across as he turned his head a little bit, and then he fires the ball over to Isaiah McKenzie, almost like he didn't want to throw the ball to the right. And again, that could lead to the injury theory that I have. But I think more likely than that is my second theory. My second theory is that I think the Bills offense is currently playing a game of possum with not just the NFL, but I think more specifically with Andy Reid and those Kansas City Chiefs. Here's why.
When do we play them?
Week 5.
Week 5.
Week 5. So we have Washington, then we have the Texans, and then we have the Chiefs.
Do you think that they're going to look right at all with Chase Young being on the right side coming at Josh?
And see, that also leads to my idea that I'll touch on that in a second, because it's a part of what I want to discuss about the offensive line and how they play a factor in this as well. If you guys recall, week 1, I was shouting from the rooftops at halftime that, like, hey, against these Pittsburgh Steelers, you're going to want to run 11 personnel. You're going to want to run 12 personnel in the second half. You're going to want to keep either Sweeney or Knox, or even throw Gilliam in over a tight end instead of fullback, and give the right side of the line some help, because it seemed like TJ Watt and company were just pouring through there. Then Dawkins was having issues and Feliciano was getting pancaked. So it seemed like the offensive line needed some help. But despite being able to scheme up some quick screens or some jet sweeps to kind of take the defense a little bit.
worked, right?
Well, yeah,
Really?
and none of that really worked. There was early in the game they tried running some jet sweeps. They didn't come out in any 11 or 12 personnel in the second half of that Steelers game, and here's how I know why.
What's
Between
11
all the
and 12
backs and the tight
personnel?
ends-
Let's explain to our
So,
listeners.
yeah, let's explain to listeners. So 11 personnel and 12 personnel. The first number is the amount of backs that are in the backfield. The second number is the amount of tight ends that are on the field. So when you have 11 personnel, what that means is you have your offensive line, you have your quarterback, you have your receivers, you have one running back in the backfield, and you have one tight end. So one running back, one tight end, 11 personnel. One running back and two tight ends, you get 12 personnel. Doing that against a team like the Steelers would have allowed the Bills to at least have a tight end, at least chip away at one of the rushers that seemingly seemed to be running free all game long. But they didn't do that. And I was curious as to why. And it's going to lead me into what I think is going on. I think that two things are taking place. And this is why the Bills are playing possum with maybe the whole league, but I think specifically the Kansas City Chiefs. We know after the season that the Bills had last year that teams are going to be doing certain things defensively to stop what the Bills did well last year. Mm-hmm. I think Brian Daboll and Josh Allen are both very intelligent people. I think that their football IQs are astronomical. And I think that where their heads are right now is, hey, last year we made a killing throwing the ball to the right side of the field. When you were rolling out to your right and buying time, our receivers were running routes from left to right, and you'd have either Gabriel Davis or you'd have Stephon Diggs. You'd have somebody break free from their separate from their DB, and Josh would just put it on the money on the right side of the field. If teams are starting to roll coverage to the right side of the field, or they're starting to send pressure from that right side of the field, there's a couple ways that you could deal with that. Now, one is to run your offense through the left side of the field, right? But that doesn't seem like the most effective way of doing so to me, because I personally, and I'm nowhere near the technical and football prowess of Josh Allen or Brian Daboll, but I would run a wide receiver screen once in a while. If they're going to send pressure off the right-hand side, you throw a quick screen. There was one play in particular. It was the touchdown pass to Diggs from this past week. They actually schemed up something like that. The play call was supposed to be a screen to Isaiah McKenzie. Rusher comes pretty much untouched from the right side. Josh Allen has to step up, evade. Diggs had gotten pushed down in the end zone and is literally laying face down in the middle of the end zone, gets up as Josh Allen flips his hips and looks back over, and he throws the ball to Diggs and touchdown. It was one of Josh Allen's 2 touchdown throws on the day. But again, that screen was there, and if not for the free rusher that was coming in from the right side, they probably would have thrown that screen. Who knows whether or not it would have scored? But my point being, those are the kinds of plays that you would run if you wanted, if they were rolling coverage to the right, or if they were sending pressure from the right, and you really want to make them pay. That quick pass is probably your best way to do it, because then all of a sudden,
what is this?
You can't rush.
How
like
is
that.
This setting up Kansas City?
Okay, so here's how it's setting up Kansas City. If I'm Kansas City and I'm looking at the 2021 Buffalo Bills offense, and they're looking at the same kinds of stuff that we're looking at, we're seeing an offense that is putting together route combinations that give your primary 2 reads, and sometimes even your third read, coming from right to left, right? Which is almost the exact opposite of what it was last year. So what I think is happening is that the Bills are trying to convince teams that, whether it's some of the things that you guys brought up, is it the offensive line? Is it something like I said? Is it an injury? You're raising questions in defensive coordinators' minds. And if you, as Josh Allen and the offense and Brian Daboll making those play calls, can scheme up some ways to improve your efficiency on the left side of the field compared to last year. And this is really the time that you're going to work on that, right? The first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, you're really going to work on that stuff that goes from right to left. And teams are going to look at that and they're going to say, wow, most of the route concepts are going to the left side of the field. 90% of the run plays are going to the left side of the field. Teams are going to roll coverage to that side of the field because they're going to think, if we take that away, there's a reason that they're not going to the right. And it's not just the passing game, as we showed. It's the running game too. So to defensive coordinators, you have to take into consideration that dang near everything the Bills are doing is being run to the left side of the field, and you need to account for that. Because if you just assume that, nope, they're going to flip it around and they're going to be on the right, and then you roll coverage to the right, well, then all their play concepts are going to run to the left, and they're going to just continuously beat you down all game long. So you're putting on film the fact that almost all of your 2021 route combinations are going right to left in most cases. Your run plays are going to the left. You're going to have teams, and I think that we're going to see this in the coming weeks. And if I'm right, I think you'll notice this in the next week or two. We're going to see teams try to take away that left side of the field, and we're going to start seeing maybe one or two big time plays take place on the right side of the field. And as long as they limit that, then you have KC and the Bills coming down the line in just a couple of weeks. And if I am Buffalo and I want to try to make the best attempt I can at beating the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to try to take every competitive advantage that I can. And knowing the type of player that Josh Allen is, how self-aware he is, knowing that he was working on in-breaking routes in the offseason, knowing that last year he worked on the deep ball, he's very self-aware. He knows that he struggled on in-breaking routes last year, and he struggled throwing mid to deep left. So why not use the easiest portion of your schedule, weeks 2 through 4, when you're facing the Miami Dolphins, the Washington football team, and the Houston Texans, to really get good on what you weren't great at last year. Use that time. Put that on film. Let the Kansas City Chiefs think, why aren't they going to the right side of the field? They have to account for that. They're going to put into their game plan defensive strategies that are going to take away those route concepts that are going to the left side of the field. And if you're Brian Daboll, and this is just a game of possum that you're playing until that week 5 matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs, I would anticipate that we see them spread the ball around like crazy. I really do anticipate that the Bills are just going to open up the entire thing come week 5, and the Chiefs aren't going to know what hit them. And if that happens and you go out to an early 14-point lead because you just caught them off guard, if you can get past the Chiefs, I don't know that there's anyone that could really stop you throughout the rest of the season to stop you from being the 1 seed. The Bills' strength of schedule from here on out is the easiest of all the AFC contenders, including the Kansas City Chiefs, the Ravens, Raiders. I thought the Colts were going to be something. They really haven't shown too much this season. The Browns
Carson Wentz
great
with his
dual
ankles. Yeah.
Both ankles.
Yeah. I don't even know how you do that. But I think that in 3 weeks, we're going to come back here after the Chiefs game. We're going to do a post-game show, and we're going to talk about, man, the Bills finally used the whole field. And I think that it's,
all right,
I think that there's a purpose behind it.
Hold up. So if that's true, then the Bills screwed up in week 1. And I'm just going to say that flat out because they lost. And so they may have gone into Pittsburgh and looked at Pittsburgh and said, not really a contender. We can handle this by cutting off half the field, if we're going with your theory. And if that truly is the case, then there's a problem, because you can do that if you're going to win. Okay. But if you lose and that was your plan, then I think it's a problem. Now, I have one other point, and this came from comments that Allen and Dawkins made after the Miami game, was that Daboll threw in more plays on Saturday. And that they said they weren't completely ready.
Yeah, like they had to
and prepared.
Josh gave the line a ton of credit.
Yeah, he really did, and the line gave him a ton of credit, right? So they were all walking the company line, but
then Daboll came out and said something.
What did he say? Daboll
came out and said during his presser the other day, which after the Josh Allen and Deion Dawkins comments, was that we put some additional plays in, but this is all stuff that they knew. So it was I think I just lost my video.
We can still hear you.
You can still hear me. Perfect. I'll switch cameras here in a second. So Dable had said more or less that these were plays that the Bills knew. Like it was stuff that was in the early install. And regardless of anything else, it was plays that the team knew. They might not have installed it into that week's game plan until like right before the game, but those were plays and terminologies that the team and the offense were familiar with. It was stuff that was taught to them in training camp and in camp. And yes, it was added into this week's game plan late. When Josh said it and Dawkins was talking, they almost made it sound like it was new stuff entirely. Like, first time I've ever seen this play, coach. And from what Dable's saying, that's not exactly what
I took away from Dawkins' quote, and I don't have it in front of me or anything like that, but what I took away from Dawkins' quote was really just that they were taken off guard by that happening, and that they weren't truly, I don't want to say not prepared for that to happen, because I think because Dawkins also said, that can happen, and we know, because we're not idiots and we're professionals, that we understand that can happen, and we just roll with it. I mean, I remember that being part of the quote, but also like Dawkins seemed to still have a problem. Like, do you understand what I'm saying, Noah?
Like, you mean with like the play? Like, not entirely, I guess.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is, like, Dawkins seemed to really just not be happy, I guess, more than anything, or I think it came off that way, that he wasn't super happy.
I mean, Sanders looked frustrated on the field a couple times near the end.
Sanders?
Yeah. I mean, I can see what Paul's saying, because I mean, you look at the concepts that are being run. They're not hard. Like, they're not doing like these routes where it's like, just go, like last year, it felt like there were a couple times where Allen went, Diggs, the ball is going to you, run something and get open.
Yep. And just get open.
It was like, it wasn't like a traditional route. Like, it was like he did like a cut and do this and a do right? Well, yeah. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen Diggs show off like he did against Seattle last year, or against Okay. Think about that Seattle game, though. He literally took the DBs to lunch because of his footwork. We haven't seen anything from Diggs where you've been like, wow, he ran a really great route, except that deep shot against
And that
Miami.
deep shot was more like just slapping the DB's hands away and outrunning them to the spot and then out jumping them. So it wasn't so much like it was the route itself that beat the guy. It was just raw athleticism. It's not like Diggs ran a double move or anything like that. So
and the reason why I think that worked is because we haven't seen Josh take a lot of deep shots. A lot of these balls have been before 20 yards, and we haven't seen him really air it out. We haven't seen him really try to air it out. Yeah, we haven't seen the Josh we saw in that preseason game where it looked like he unleashed like this barrage on the defense, and it was the Green Bay defense, and he just like went off. And we haven't seen him do that. We haven't seen him really throw darts. We haven't seen him throw his wide receivers open. We haven't really seen super advanced concepts. I mean, the runs have been straight runs. It hasn't been like we haven't seen a lot of cutbacks. We haven't seen a lot of counters. We haven't seen a lot of pitches. It's just been,
I don't know about that.
It really has seemed pretty basic. And I can't tell because I don't see the basic.
Then I'm still mad about the Pittsburgh game, because they should have
won, and I think we can all agree that they should have won.
Yeah. And honestly, if not for the block punt,
if you're going to plan to do that, you have to win.
Would they have? For real, if not for the blocked punt, the
those
Pittsburgh
Steelers
offense was just as anemic as I predicted that it would be, and not even predicted. I think it was pretty much written on the wall that it's going to be a short, quick passing attack from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I didn't feel like Pittsburgh could necessarily outscore Buffalo, unless you take into account that they weren't going to throw the whole playbook out there just yet. I think that if they would have been Bills Chiefs week 1, we would have had the whole playbook right out of the gate. Like, they would have given the Chiefs their absolute best shot. I think that they're not scared of anybody, and they think that the best chance they have against the Chiefs is to make sure that there's stuff that isn't on tape by the time they get to them. And depending on where that ended up in the schedule taking place was going to dictate how early or late in the season they open up the entire playbook. I think it's pretty ironic that they added run plays
later
this
than
week.
week 5. Then
you have a problem.
Yeah, I think if it happens in
opening
week
the
5,
playbook.
it's a problem. Like, I'm willing to say in the next 2 games, if we see more of the same, they still win, but almost everything's being directed to the left side of the field, and there's like really basic route concepts being run. For the next 2 weeks, I'm not going to ring any alarms. As long as the Bills hum along and take care of business and win the games, right? Win the next 2 weeks. Then you get to the Chiefs, and I'm absolutely 100% expecting the Buffalo offense to look different than it did last year in some respects, as I don't think you want to just roll out the same exact thing you've done. But I think that we're going to see the whole thing. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I think everything's going to open up. I think that that's going to be the plan. And I think that by the time we get to week 5, if I'm right, it's going to be fireworks. If I'm wrong, that right side of the line is going to have a long day.
Yeah.
I agree with Noah, though. I think a lot of it's been really basic and vanilla so far, but without seeing the all 22 in its entirety, it's kind of hard to see what all is happening. The broadcast view only tells a portion of the story.
Okay, but eventually they'll allow the all 22, and that'll come out. But we can't keep harping on the fact that we don't have it. We have what we have, right?
Yes.
So I think if I'm right, if I'm Andy Reid, I think I'm looking through that, through the fact that they're running everything left. I think I'm just looking through it. Maybe
what if they start hitting on stuff to the left in the next 2 weeks?
Okay, that would be different, especially because Washington has a good defense.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they better win if they're scheming it up this way.
Yeah.
They need to pull out these wins because a blocked punt can happen at any point.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want games to be close enough where a blocked punt can change the outcome of the game.
Pick 6 can happen at any point. Heineke has thrown for as many yards as Josh has, right? And maybe it's been garbage time. I don't know. But regardless, they're even basically in yardage and touchdowns and everything, right? So the Redskins are more scary than I think we're giving them credit for at this point, just because well, you know what? I want to hit on that, Mike, because I think we should talk about the running game in a minute. So
did you know that every single Bills touchdown so far this season happened on the left side of the field? Every one of them. Every single one of them. All the runs, all the passes, every single touchdown, left side of the field.
Okay, and that's fine, but they didn't score enough in Pittsburgh. I don't mean to.
Here's what I want to say about what you have to say with that I understand what you're saying, but I also think that they came out thinking that it would work. And I'm going to go with Paul here again. I think that they thought it wouldn't matter against Pittsburgh, that they were just copying.
They weren't afraid of Pittsburgh at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have to be afraid of every team every week because there's a movie called Any Given Sunday. And there's a reason that Any Given Sunday is a quote and used.
But you're not preparing to beat the Steelers in the playoffs. You're preparing to get to Kansas City. Everything will run through Kansas City to get to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, if you have to do certain things.
So I'm going to ask a question. If the offense comes out and puts up 35 or 42, but they still lose
against the Chiefs. We're talking the Chiefs game.
Yep. And they still
there's
lose.
no chance that the Kansas City's gonna put 30 plus up on the defense as we see it so far. Unless something changes in the next 2 weeks, I don't think that Kansas City is gonna put up over 30. So I think if you're the Bills, what you want to do is you want to give yourself every chance to put up points. And what better way to do that than to put some doubt in your opposition's mind? Like, hey, everything they're running is going to the left. If I'm a linebacker, right, and I'm looking at game film from 2021 and 2020, and I see in 2020 Josh Allen's rolling out to his right, he's firing missiles down the right sideline, he's hitting guys on the sideline who are toe drag swagging their way to first downs and to the AFC Championship game. And then I see 2021 Bills, and I see every scoring play going to the left side of the field. I see route combinations almost entirely going to the left side of the field. I see runs going to the left side of the field, and I see Josh Allen not really rolling out to his right too much. Then I'm starting to think, okay, well, if I see him start to go to his left, I feel like if you get a defense to start thinking that your offense is going to start going one way, like let's say the Bills run a jet sweep, and every time the Bills run jet sweep, it comes from right to left. And then one time you send it from right to left, you don't hand it off, and then Isaiah comes back from left to right, and all of a sudden you have the defense going to the left, and you're taking it off to the right. So it's a constant chess match. And if you're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, one, we knew we needed a better defense. We knew our defense had to create more pressure. I think we're seeing that they're capable of that. And I think that in an effort to not have teams think that we're going to run a lot of the same concepts as 2020 that made us so successful, hey, you know what? We know Josh can read the entire field. They're giving him half field reads. Like you're literally making it to where the defense only has to pay attention to half of the field. And I think that you do that often enough for enough weeks in a row, people are going to think that that's what you're trying to do. And even if it's only subconsciously, you're going to get somebody to bite on something. And you only need to make it happen once against those Chiefs, right? Because if your defense does what your defense is supposed to do, what your defense looks like they're going to be able to do from a pass rush perspective against Patrick
Look, the best defenses in the league have been smoked by Kansas City. But
look what the Ravens did. The Ravens' defensive game plan wasn't anything different than what we've done the past 2 weeks.
The Ravens play a completely different defense.
Okay, they play a completely different defense, but they were flying all over the field. They were getting outside pressure. They were keeping Mahomes contained. They were making him stay in the pocket. They were getting the amount of pressure, and they were doing the speed. What have we seen from the Bills? Speed, pressure, DB blitzes, keeping QBs in the pocket, not letting them roll out. Tua tries to roll out. He got smacked.
I think if they run DB blitzes against Mahomes, he is just going to kill them. He's just going to destroy them.
My hope is they did that to get it on film the first few weeks, but the game plan defensively against the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be rush your front four because your front four have a legitimate chance in 2021 of getting home. I think you're not afraid of Jacoby Brissett, so you're sending Micah Hyde. You're not afraid of Tua, so you're sending Taron Johnson. But you're not going to send, like you said, you're not going to send corner pressure and leave yourself exposed in the secondary because Patrick Mahomes isn't Tua. You're Mahomes isn't Big Ben. Patrick Mahomes isn't Jacoby Brissett. He's not Tyler Heineke. He's not Tyrod Taylor. Like you're going to need to get home with four.
And I feel super bad about Tyrod.
Yeah, Tyrod.
He is so unlucky.
He really is.
You know, when we talk about unlucky players, like Tyrod, I think is unlucky.
The pinnacle of it. Yeah. Yeah, you'll always have a spot in my heart for breaking the drought. Hands down.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
The Bills haven't beat the Chiefs yet.
They haven't beat Washington either.
I
don't mean to harp on it. I don't mean to harp on it. I really don't. But they better win. And if they do this, they better win. I mean, if I'm the Bills, I'm opening it up this week.
So let's hypothetical. Let's throw a hypothetical out there, right? Let's assume. Let's for a second, just for the sake of argument, assume that I'm right and this is one giant game of rope-a-dope, and it is specifically catered to the Kansas City Chiefs, and making them see for 4 weeks, this is how we're going to run our offense in 2021. And if I can get one of those 11 starters on defense to bite on something, thinking it's going left when it's going right now, then the first 4 weeks are worth it, especially if you come out of the first 4 weeks 3-1. If that's what's going on, if this isn't an offensive line issue, if this isn't that they don't think that Darrell Williams can hold up on the right side of the line, if it's not an injury issue, if it's what I'm saying it is, and it's the Bills literally playing a certain style of offense to get it on tape, only to open things up when you face the Kansas City Chiefs week 5. And then the Bills go in there and they destroy Kansas City. I don't mean just a beat, like a 3-point game. I mean like foot to
Miami.
throat. And they do to the Chiefs what they did to Miami, which, again, that's probably highly unlikely because the Chiefs are the Chiefs at the end of the day.
Right.
But let's just, for the sake of argument, assume that what they're doing leads to that, where it's like the Chiefs' heads are spinning. They don't know what they just got hit by, and the defense is playing lights out, and Josh Allen just slinging it all over the place. And now the defense is all out of sorts because they're install for the week, had safeties rolling over to the left side of the field, and now, Josh is lining up at the line of scrimmage and literally flipping the play, and the receivers all switch and all the route concepts go in reverse. And now all of a sudden everything's going left to right again.
Let me throw something at you. So I'm going to just throw one name. Okay. And you may know it's coming, but Tyrann Mathieu. Okay. He just plays center field, and they let him use his instincts more than anything. Like to roll either way.
Okay.
Regardless. And he is a ball hawk. He's a snake. He can hit. He can tackle. And they let him play in that third safety spot basically most of the time. And he is a player. And again, if the Chiefs have opened up their playbook already, yeah, sure. They lost to the Ravens 36-35. It wasn't like they lost 13-7. You know what I mean?
But do we think that the Ravens pass rush is even like a microcosm of what the Bills' current pass rush is? Because I think the Bills' front four, you can argue that the front four rotation for the Bills is top 3 in the league right now through 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And until something says otherwise, until an offensive line is able to shut down that defensive line, I think that's the recipe to beat the Chiefs. I mean, that's what the Bucs did. It's going to take a whole open offensive playbook, but if you're not going to show all of your cards, if there's plays that this offense has, and I think that we have confirmation now that there are plays that exist in this playbook that aren't being installed in a week-to-week basis in the game plan. And this week was a perfect example of that. We have Josh Allen and Deion Dawkins going on record saying that new plays were installed almost the day before the game. We have Dable saying, hey, but it's nothing that we haven't already known. And we got these mixed messages going out. If I'm defensive players in the league right now, I don't know what's what. And I'm thinking, in the back of my head, I'm thinking,
they're
clearly you have more
to that
plays.
Extent based on the quote.
I know, not just the quote. It's the quote.
It seems like there's dysfunction coming from a team that's not supposed to have dysfunction.
And it almost seems manufactured. Like to me, it comes off manufactured. Like, hey, we're trying to seem like there's something.
That's what I was asking.
Like there's something amiss.
Oh man, we're so not on the same page with this, because maybe, okay, I go one more week before unleashing the offense, and maybe up to this point you let Steve Spagnuolo work magic thinking they're going to go left, and that's all he's seeing this year, right? But we know teams game plan based on more than just 3 or 4 games that they've seen this year, right? And if you let the Chiefs just plan for going for the left for the first three games, and you show that, and then it's Houston in week 4.
Mm-hmm.
If against Houston, you unleash, and then maybe you overwhelm the Chiefs, right?
Now you have a week to plan for everything. That's feasible too. That wouldn't shock me.
I would do that more than waiting until the game.
Because then you're only giving them a week. And like, how much
Right.
can you put in a week?
Right.
And you're giving
so
yourself
then they're
one more
scrambling
game to like
to
make
test
sure that
out the defense.
yeah, that like we could throw
For
it
the
all over the
offense.
place. It ain't gonna matter.
Right.
Like we were running all the concepts to the left, but let's open the whole thing up and let's show ourselves that we can do what we've been doing in practice. And now we're only giving the Chiefs a week to react to the fact that they've probably started to build a game plan that was like all the way from like a defensive line standpoint, right? If you know all the running plays are going to the left, like just
you're planning
the
to
way
put
you're going to pressure,
Chris
you're going to
Jones-
pressure a certain way.
Right.
Yeah.
You're planning to put Chris Jones over there. You're planning to put
and if you only give them a
what's
week
his
to
face?
adjust,
the other Frank Clark on that side, right? And then yeah, if you give them the week to try and adjust, you know, maybe they put Frank Clark and they don't put him against Dawkins. They put him against Darrell Williams and you know, that kind of thing. And then you don't have Josh with Frank Clark coming in at his blind side, right?
yeah.
And that kind of thing. I think that's something that might be smarter for them to do, is to unleash against Houston.
Yeah, which I 100% agree with. I think that honestly that would probably be smart. Now, I want to believe that you're good enough to just not show anything until you walk into the Kansas City game, but for the sake of argument, if you do want to make sure that you're hitting on that stuff and you want to give them even more to have to game plan for in 1 week, then yeah, maybe you run it against the Texans. You just open the whole thing up knowing you're going to probably have a rookie quarterback like that you're going up against. You're going to feast on the Texans. And maybe that's the game that you just completely open it up wide, like you said, and you give Kansas City more than they can handle and more they can game plan for in just 1 week, because up to this point, they've already started to strategize a little bit, and with everything running to the left. Let me ask you this, though. Let's say that that's not what it is. What good explanation is there for an offense to succeed to the extent that the Bills offense succeeded last year in spreading the ball around, especially on those throws to the right, and then right out of the gate the next season, not to like do the same things and be stopped, but to not even do them at all? It just seems so odd to me. And Brian Dable is smarter than that. Like, why would you?
I hope so.
Like,
I
just
hope
don't.
so.
I can't come up with any other logical explanation as to why you would stop doing what took you. Like, I would get if they went into week 1 and they tried to throw the 2020 playbook at the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Steelers just shut them down. And it's like, oh crap, back to the drawing board. But that's not what happened week 1. Week 1 was very basic. Week 1 was basic. Josh looked lost. The offense seemed to look like it was a fraction of the thickness that the playbook was the year prior. And I think that we haven't even seen, a fraction of what we saw the offense do last year. And that's not just from a success standpoint. I mean, from like an X's and O's standpoint, like everything just seems so vanilla to me so far. And I can't think of any good reasons why you would stop doing what you did, why you would, have Diggs primarily run routes that end up on the right side of the field last year. And then this year, all of a sudden he's running routes that go to the left. And then maybe you're trying to get better at things that you didn't do a lot of last year. And maybe you're trying to test things out in the early season because that's when you want to make your mistakes, not in December. But I can't think of any good ideas not to do the things that made you elite and to just stop them altogether, not do them and fail. So change, but just stop altogether.
I guess that.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Like why wouldn't even try it unless there was a really good reason. And I think that the reason is I just can't shake the feeling that the Bills are just up to some 200 IQ move here. And it's only a matter of time before the whole thing gets opened up. I don't know how else.
Noah, talk about the run game, Noah. And let's go to Mike's comment about whether they should be using Breida, incorporate on some runs, whether they should use Zach Moss primarily in the red zone, and then I guess you use Singletary down the middle of the field.
Well, it could be you use Singletary to get their situation. He's your workhorse, and then you have Zach Moss kind of leeching those carries. I mean, I think the way they're going with the running game now is, I mean, it's been good. You know, we've seen Zach Moss have a good day. We've seen Singletary
outside of the fumble, right?
outside of the
So-
fumble, but I mean,
Yeah.
he came back and scored 2 touchdowns. So,
Right.
but you know, and we've seen Singletary have 2 very good weeks in a row. But I agree with Mike. I would like to see Breida used more. I mean, he's just on special. I mean, I feel like we barely saw him against the Dolphins.
He had 2 touches against the Dolphins.
And then he had like what 9 against the Steelers.
yeah,
and
because
Yeah, but I
Moss-
think
Yeah, and
in the game against
so-
the Steelers, he averaged less than a yard a carry.
yeah,
yeah,
but they did split him out, and
They
and
did.
you know, which I think puts a little seed, which to me, splitting out Breida with his speed plants a little seed in a guy who's game planning. You know, I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we gotta account for that.
yeah,
Teams prepare for what you show them, and I think that, like, yeah, I'm sure the Chiefs have some highly intelligent faces over, highly intelligent guys over there on the defensive side of the ball, scheming things up. But I don't know. This is bizarre. I don't think in all of my years of watching football, I've ever seen a team that has a quarterback that could read the entire field
and not use him that way.
not use him in the way that he could be used. It's not even like they're opening it up all over the place and he's just unsuccessful throwing to the right and he's having success throwing. Like, they're just not doing it at all. And like, if you're the Texans, you're probably coming up with some really simple concepts for Bills Texans. You're going to want that rookie quarterback.
Texans suck.
Well, yeah, there's that. But you're going to want a quarterback that's not good at reading defenses to have a very simplistic, like, half-field reads where it's like boom, 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 check down.
Mhm.
Boom, 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 check down. You do that to a first-year guy, maybe even a second-year guy, or a guy that just simply can't read defenses. You don't do that to a guy that has grown every single season and now is in his 4th year and has shown you the ability to throw the ball anywhere on the field. I don't care if he's on the left and needs to throw to the far right hash. I don't care if he's on the right and needs to throw to the far left hash. Josh Allen can put the ball anywhere on the field.
Mhm.
And
yeah. I mean,
to
that
only
one
utilize
touchdown
half the
against
field
Miami,
is
he
just
threw across his body,
bizarre.
so-
Yeah, the
Right.
one to Diggs, which I thought when we watched it live, I thought somebody had fallen on that play. I didn't realize it was Diggs and that he got up and caught the touchdown too.
Yeah.
That is remarkable to me.
Yeah. So, just to finalize this point about running to the left and all of that. So we want Breida to get more touches, but we don't want touches to go down for either of the other guys. Because, I mean, if you have Breida, he's going to start leaching, while you have Singletary averaging 6.5 a carry right now. And again,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
he
you
was
don't-
doing
you
that.
don't
He was
need
doing
to
that.
incorporate Breida in runs. I mean, you can split him out wide. You can have him be the screen guy instead of Beasley. You can have him just be on screens instead of Singletary. You can use him in different ways. I mean, he's a speedy little guy that you have on your roster that you're really not utilizing. Yeah, cool. Devin Singletary is averaging that. What happens if he can't get it going against Washington? Are you just not going to use Breida then? Then at that point you'll have to, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think getting Breida,
I think you go to Moss first.
yeah, but
Right.
but Moss is a very different runner than Singletary, and I think can be shut down to a certain extent better than Singletary can, because Moss is a very straight ahead, I'm going to run you over. Yeah, he is able to make those cuts, but I think Singletary can jump faster than he can maybe.
Well, Singletary definitely showed us he has a second gear.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I didn't
that
think
we didn't
was
know.
even there. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anyone knew that. Even
He blew past the defense. Like,
He
it wasn't
did.
even just like he just outmaneuvered him. He like flew past them.
he
It
did.
was a thing of beauty.
Okay, so that's good. I think to cover the run game.
One more thing to wrap up this part, if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna throw something to you.
Okay.
Washington, right?
Yeah.
Look, and actually, if we want to go into final thoughts, we could jump into
Yep.
final thoughts.
I
and
think
this
that's
can be
a
our
good
final
place
Yeah,
to
we
go.
should.
Final thoughts.
Yep.
Let's talk about Washington and final thoughts. So let's move on.
thoughts. So final
Washington.
thoughts. Washington. So let's say the Bills offense does what it's done the first 2 weeks of the season, and they operate almost universally to the left side of the field. correct me if I'm wrong, but Chase Young usually rushes from the right, correct?
Mhm.
If I'm Washington, and I've already noticed the trend through 2 weeks that the Bills' offense is running through the left side of the field.
I was going to say,
are you having Chase
thing.
Young practice on the opposite side of the line this week?
But don't they
Get
have
familiar
Sweat
with the position
too?
Yeah, I
but
mean,
Chase
they do.
Young
But
is-
if you were gonna
Chase
like,
Young is a different,
yeah.
a different breed. I agree with that. But
if I've identified, I think that's gonna be telling. If defensive coordinators have started to key on to the fact, they're key into the fact that the Bills' offense is running exclusively to the left. If we see indications that defensive coordinators are then scheming against that, and the Bills are still still doing the same thing, like don't like.
I guess to your point, that's what I was saying about Frank Clark, right? If you're the Chiefs, you're probably going to line him up on the left side.
Mhm.
If this is what the Bills show,
Yeah.
but that kind of thing. So I think you're on to something, and that kind of thing. The only thing that makes me worried about that is that then what you're doing is you're putting their best pass rusher on his blind side. Yes, you're also putting them against your best offensive lineman, but you're putting the best pass rusher again on his blind side. So,
but Josh's preferred side to roll out to is then going to be free to not only roll out to the right, and the pressure is going to be behind you. And we know Josh can outrun these guys. If you're going to roll out to your right and the pressure is going to be coming from behind, they ain't touching Josh Allen. Like if you're going to line somebody up on the left side and I'm Josh Allen and I'm that offense and I'm Brian Dable, I'm thinking, yeah, we're running a naked bootleg to the right and just get open, Diggs. Just get open.
Yeah.
And I am, whether I'm running 11 personnel so I could have a tight end kind of stay back there in case, someone like Frank Clark gets through and is pursuing Josh from behind. But if you leave open that right side of the field for Josh Allen to roll out and then just find somebody, you are going to get carved up. So if that is what the Chiefs end up doing to combat against this left-sided Bills offense, I think that bodes well for the Bills. I don't think that is necessarily a detriment to what our offensive line can protect against. Like, I almost encourage them to do that. Like, go ahead, put your best pass rusher on the left because Josh is going to roll out to the right that game.
Noah, give us
maybe
your
that's what they're
thoughts.
hoping.
I mean, I think the Washington pass rush will be a really good test for them again. You're facing a lot of teams with really good pass rushes right away, so it's going to put that offensive line to the test. We saw them struggle against the Steelers, which is a very good pass rush, as we saw 2 weeks in a row. And then you face them against Miami, who does have good players on that line, players who make a difference, and they held up. They held up very well against Miami. I think if the offensive line comes out again and shows another good game, and maybe the offense opens it up a little bit more. Maybe we're not getting plays installed on Saturday this time. We're getting them installed on Thursday instead. So, but I think there's a chance that this Washington game could be close. Heineke might be able to hang in there and make some stuff, because we've seen him. I mean, look at what he did against Tampa last year. He has a little bit of magic in him. So if you're able to take that away, you're able to take away. I don't think you need to contain Young, because you're not facing a three-headed monster like you were against Pittsburgh. But I mean, if you're able to kind of just keep Young at bay and then just held up, I think you win the game. And that's really all you have to do is just hold up.
You're still asking either way, whatever Washington does, you're still asking a very good pass rusher to line up against.
So
up against Williams.
Young is going to get there. Allen's going to get sacked. Young is going to make a difference. But I think if you're able to just
I'm not
keep
saying
him
just
at bay,
Young or Sweat, regardless, you're asking Williams to do more than he's done so far, which is fine. Which is absolutely fine.
Which is what should happen.
So, Paul, final thoughts.
I'm going to say 3 things. First thing is that there's clearly something going on with the Bills offense that none of us have entirely figured out yet. And it's going to be something that we should all keep an eye on moving forward. Number 2, Washington. if their pass rush is getting home early in the game, I would expect that we will see the Bills start to deploy and start to insert a little bit more of a screen game and quick passing attack, and putting some of that on film.
Number
3 is going to be, if we see the Bills continue to utilize only the left side of the field, I 100% anticipate that by week 5 it stops.
That's fair.
All right.
My final thoughts. I think we had a good podcast or show or whatever we're calling this now. Broadcast. We'll go with that. So I think this was a lot of fun. As always, right, guys? So this was good. I hope people like our new setup, and thanks to both of you for being here and doing this. And Paul, you put in a lot of hard work into this, and
we're just getting started.
Yep. But to your point, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills. Go Bills. We'll see everybody next week.
Yep. As always, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and we will see you next time.